Before I begin, this story is up 18 years. When you have kids around, please use headphones. Thank you for your understanding. Everglades monster snake. The Everglades, also known as the Grass River, was declared a national park in 1947 by President Harry S. Truman. However, the Everglades formed around 10,000 years ago when the ice melted, which caused sea levels to rise and turned the region into a huge swamp area. Non-native Burmese pythons have established a breeding population in South Florida and are one of the most concerning invasive species in Everglades National Park. Pythons compete with native wildlife for food, which includes mammals, birds, and other reptiles. Severe mammal declines in Everglades National Park have been linked to Burmese pythons. The most severe declines in native species have occurred in the remote southernmost regions of Everglades National Park, where pythons have been established the longest. In a 2012 study, populations of raccoons had dropped 99.3%, possums 98.9%, and bobcats 87.5% since 1997. Marsh rabbits, cottontail rabbits, and foxes effectively disappeared. The mammals that have declined most significantly have been regularly found in the stomachs of Burmese pythons removed from Everglades National Park and elsewhere in Florida. Raccoons and possums often foraged for food near the water's edge, which is a habitat frequented by pythons in search of prey. Between 1996 and 2006, approximately 99,000 pythons were imported into the United States as pets. It is believed that the pythons began reproducing in the wild for two main reasons: irresponsible keepers who released them, and the animals escaping their loosely kept cages due to a hurricane or stormy weather. As for the former, these snakes grow to an average length of 12 feet. Pet owners likely felt uneasy about the health risk and financial burden associated with housing and feeding a 12-foot snake in their home. Unwilling to face these challenges, many released them into the wild. Regarding the latter, Hurricane Andrew was responsible for the destruction of a python breeding facility in Florida in 1992. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, other, less severe storms likely allowed snakes in loosely secured cages to escape during stormy weather. Here is a brief timeline of how the population began to spiral out of control. 2000, a breeding population was confirmed in the Everglades. 2001 to 2005, 201 pythons observed or killed in the Everglades. 2006 to 2007, 418 pythons seen or killed in the Everglades. 2009, 5,180,000 estimated by the South Florida Water Management District. It is difficult to determine exact population numbers over the past decade because these animals are difficult to detect. The above figures are based on python sightings and kills. The bottom line is that the population of breeding pythons in the Everglades has grown to well over 30,000 from the early 2000s to the present. The Florida Everglades are under siege. An invasion of Burmese pythons has this natural wonder in a stranglehold. Entire species of animals are being wiped out. Aggressive, ravenous and incredibly fast breeding, these pythons have no natural predators to stalk them, except man. A group of people called the Swamp People, whose job it is to collect these snakes, head to the Everglades to catch some specimens. A fee is paid for each snake collected. It is a lucrative business. With a lot of skill it can easily make money quickly. Some researchers are concerned that if these pythons interbreed with other snakes, a very aggressive and significantly more dangerous species of giant snakes could emerge. Researchers fear that a species of snake could emerge as large as the titanoboa. The titanoboa was the largest snake that ever lived. She lived about 60 million years ago. She lived after the dinosaurs and before the prehistoric shark megalodon. This snake reached up to 45 feet in length, about the length of a school bus. Marco Island is a city on one of 10,000 islands belonging to Everglades National Park. Located on the Mexican Gulf, Marco Island is a gateway to the Everglades. A beautiful city with 12,000 inhabitants and a popular destination for many Florida residents. There are several boatyards and boat rental shops. There are also several mangrove islands around Marco Island that civilians visit on boats to swim and party in the mangroves. Dolphins, manatees, sharks, alligators, birds, turtles, Florida panthers and reptiles live in the Everglades. Unfortunately, an invasive species of snake is also spreading and threatening the natural habitat of other animal species. That's why a group of people has been formed to collect these constrictors. Tom is one of those people who are called swamp people because they are always in swampy areas. Today Tom meets with Billy, Bob and Frank to collect these pythons. The bigger the snake, the more money they earn. The swamp people are out and about around Marco Island today. Several people have reported sightings of a giant snake on the islands surrounding Marco Island. All four get into their boat and cast off. The goal is to search the mangrove islands for these pythons. Tom steers the boat out of Marco Island harbor and heads northeast where the river leads deeper into the Everglades. The swamp people see dolphins diving up and down in the water. They now come to the first island, which is densely overgrown with mangroves. It's low tide and the crabs are crawling around between the mangroves. They continue to a larger island where there is an abandoned settlement from the 70s. A hurricane destroyed the settlement and the people who lived there abandoned their homes. Tom stops the boat to go ashore, his instincts telling him this is a good place for these snakes to breed. Tom, Billy, Bob and Frank enter the island equipped with cloth sacks and snake sticks and begin to examine the educational buildings. Bob finds an 8-foot python and tries to hold it by the tail. These snakes can become very aggressive if someone gets too close to them. The snake hisses angrily and tries to bite Bob. It wriggles around wildly and then with great skill Tom grabs its head and puts the snake in the cloth bag. Bob goes back to the boat to stow the captured snake there. Bob goes into the boat and puts down the bag with the captured snake. Something is wrong. He feels like he is being watched. He looks over the railing over the water. It is very quiet. Suddenly a massive body moves under the boat. Bob can't react so quickly when the gigantic mouth of a snake unexpectedly grabs his head and quickly pulls him from the boat under the water. A gigantic snake body wraps around him and presses the last breath of air out of him as hard as steel. The stranglehold was so strong that his eyeballs burst. Bob died and the snake swallowed him head first. After the meal, the monster snake quietly crawls back into its hiding place to digest Bob. When Tom notices that Bob isn't coming back, he goes to the boat to check on him. He thinks that Bob is definitely taking a nap. The boat is abandoned. He goes back to Billy and Frank and together they look for Bob. They look everywhere but to no avail. They finally come to a barn. The swamp people find an abandoned vehicle in front of the barn. In this vehicle, Tom finds a metal box filled with dynamite. Hunters used to use dynamite to kill alligators. This is strictly forbidden today. The three carefully enter the barn together and see the huge snake resting in the middle. This disgusts people and stands up and hisses dangerously. The monster snake regurgitates its last meal to make room for its new meal. Bob's half-digested body falls to the floor with a splash, steaming with digestive juices. Suddenly the snake darts forward and grabs Frank by the neck and rolls him up to strangle him. Tom quickly runs back to the car and gets the dynamite. He runs back, lights it and throws it at the snake. There is an explosion and she angrily pushes Frank's crushed body against the wall. She now rushes towards Tom to kill him. Tom has already lit the next stick of dynamite and throws it through the open mouth into the snake's huge maw. A huge explosion tears the snake's body apart and the monster is dead. This beast was a good 50 feet long. Tom calls the Coast Guard and police to transport his two dead friends. After questioning the officers, the two swamp people are released. The remaining snake body is taken to a laboratory for examination. The dead are buried. Tom and Billy stopped hunting snakes. In the laboratory it turns out that this snake is a mutation and was created through crossing with another species of snake. In a snake's nest under an abandoned barn in the Everglades, 80 offspring of this monster snake are hatching. End of the story.